Welcome to the Badlands, a place I don't think I or anyone I'm going to talk to expected to be. My name is Jared, and for the last 9 months, I've been an out-of-work ad agency senior suit. My last role was the Regional Client Service Director at Grey Singapore, delivering work around Southeast Asia and India. I returned to London last year, fully imagining I'd been in another agency fairly quickly, as had been the case over the last 2 decades, but not so much this time. So I found myself wandering the Badlands. In these 9 months, I've noticed a few odd things in our industry, and I've also noticed a surprising amount of ex-colleagues and clients all in a similar position to me. So I thought it might be helpful and maybe interesting to talk to some of these people, to see how they're doing, discover their experiences, understand what they're looking for, and maybe shine a light on them and their talents, but most importantly, check in with them, as it's a lonely experience being in the Badlands. So please welcome Celia Muddimer. Celia is a highly experienced marketing director, working in national banking, IT, training sectors, to name a few. But like many senior and experienced marketing and agency folk, she finds herself in the Badlands. We've never actually worked together, but we do know a lot of the same people. Today we're going to discuss her job search experience and how she's pushing for fractional roles, and what that actually means for herself and potential employers, as it comes up quite a lot with my guests. So today we'll get into that, along with maybe some more tips and help for others in the Badlands. So please welcome Celia Muddimer. Celia, how the hell are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yes, very good, thanks.
Good. Well, it's so nice to speak to you again. We've spoken a few times. One was pre-holiday. I think we were both literally going on holiday, although you went further afield. You were in Canada, I think, for a few weeks, which
I
I
was
think
3
was
weeks, an amazing country, absolutely
yeah,
amazing
it sounded
country.
amazing when we spoke after both our holidays, and it's funny you notice a few things work related when you were in Canada that may come up today when we get into some of our stuff. So it's been great talking to you offline, and I just thought it'd be really interesting and nice for people to hear your story, because you've clearly worked at some amazing places, and like I've mentioned, a highly experienced marketing director. And the first thing that I like to do with my guests, like I'm a talk show host, is give you the chance then to really deep dive into who you are and what you've been doing for the last, I won't say how long. I would never age someone, but you're clearly highly experienced is the phrase I'm likely to use now. So why don't you give my millions of listeners a bit of a Celia download, what you've been doing for the last 25, 30 years.
Lovely, thank you. As you say, quite a seasoned marketeer, really. So, a chartered marketeer of over 30 years. Two sides of the coin, really, to my career, both corporate, starting as a graduate trainee for what was TSB and moved into Lloyd's TSB, and also worked into Santander. So certainly financial services forms part of my portfolio of professional services within my career. Also worked in the energy market as well, and also worked in home builders and construction. So predominantly professional services, worked in large corporates to small to medium-sized organisations. Also worked in client and agency side as well. So really have the other side of the coin in terms of agency experience and working with clients and driving the best for clients too. And also both sectors, both B2B and B2C. And that's really covered a number of different types of organisations as well. I've had the pleasure of being a part of a startup, which was a subsidiary of Empower, and bringing a New Zealand platform and brand to the UK market. I can say they were the best years of my career. And also then moving into high growth organisations where high performance was key, and also legacy based organisations who are struggling with transformation. So covered all aspects of marketing, sales and business really, and working with a lot of C-suites and stakeholders and boards. So I've thoroughly enjoyed my time to date.
I told you she was highly experienced, everyone. If you could follow that, I mean, it's when I look through your LinkedIn thing, it's like, man, you have done some amazing stuff at some amazing places, and like I said, you find yourself in the Badlands. I think your last role, you were contracting, and we've discussed this nature of kind of delivering on a contract and delivering the objectives that are set when you're doing a contract, but it's led you to this place where you're in the Badlands. So how come someone like you is in this position? How did your last thing end? And has it been a surprise to you based on everything you've done, that
Yeah.
it's maybe taken longer than you once would have thought to find your next thing.
It is actually. It has been quite a shock, and I think you really do have to do some soul searching in terms of actually where your skill set is now, where are your strengths. You have to still maintain that self confidence to know that you do have a lot to bring to the party. But my journey really started in 2019, and I suppose that really goes against where most senior marketing leaders have been. So fantastic. I left PowerShop really, gung ho in terms of next opportunity in a leadership team back into financial services. So really, really excited to go back into financial services, moving out of the energy market. And obviously the pandemic hit and things started to change. And that really moved me into then some short-term 12-month contracts, great opportunities in terms of commercial marketing director positions, but really took me into organisations that probably if I was doing a job search would mean that maybe wouldn't have been top of my list. I would have been more of the top FTSE organisations that I'd be looking at. So it was great that I joined a company, Powered Access, actually as their commercial marketing director. And that was a fantastic international company, Loxham. And I really started to understand really that situation between sales and marketing, and actually where that truly sits in terms of where marketing needs that strategic direction to grow that business. Left there in September 22 and realised at that point that the market wasn't as buoyant as what I thought it would be when I was last in 2019. So took an interim marketing director's position, started in November last year then to know that this contract was coming to an end, and thought, okay, the market is feeling really tough now. Recruiters didn't seem to have many jobs that they wanted to talk to you about. Your network was very quiet in coming back to you. And the situation obviously with LinkedIn was many junior roles were there, but very few senior roles really available. So really we've rolled since then, I feel, since November with political and economic instability. And that really has just had this hodgepodge of environment that makes the market extremely tough in terms of the recruitment market, and shifting sands in terms of where marketing and the place of marketing as we move forward in the next few years, really.
Yeah, it comes up a lot in my chats. There's clearly a lot of factors in play at the minute. You touched on a few there. The state of the economy. You'll have to turn on the news to see why some of these things will be affecting our individual jobs. Consumer confidence being pretty low at the minute and has been for the last 2-3 years. I think the knock-on effects of COVID and what that's had on the market and the work that we do. I think in my episode with Rosie, we touched on it, that there was a huge overhiring post-COVID to deliver much more digital services, and basically, given the behavioral change that we all went through during that COVID period. And I think that the country and the industries that we work in are kind of in that course correction post that now, lack of investment. I don't ever want to talk about Brexit in relation to this because I'm talking out of my arse, but it's clearly, has negative effects on the economy as a whole, which just ultimately affects what marketeers and agency folk like me are going to be doing, So yeah, there's so many things at play which are just out of your control, which I guess is one of the most frustrating things, that the lack of control that we have over the situation.
And I
But
mean,
go on, sorry.
I was recently reading a report by Gartner as well, and you see that shifting sand in terms of the reduction of marketing spend, certainly since 2019 and where that's literally been. But going back to your point, then it's the tactical space, isn't it? And I think that's driving the recruitment market as well, that it's the operational piece to tactically deliver, but actually the strategic direction of where organisations want, and they've got those growth ambitions and they know that they need that space. But ultimately, there's potentially a trend to move away from that long-term focus to focus very much, and hence why we've probably just seen that 9.7% increase in ad spend into 2024. Very, very positive in terms of what that looks like, but overall for marketing budgets and for the roles of marketing leaders in those organizations, there leaves that question, doesn't it? Where do we stand, and what is that opportunity as we move forward? And I think that's starting to play out of where we are with the recruitment market at the moment.
No, for sure. In my last regional role, I looked after the Procter and Gamble business in Southeast Asia, and we were starting to see a lot of conversations I was having with clients and the procurement teams were around kind of how can we extend the use of assets so we didn't have to recreate. And, they were looking to get much more media dollar out of their assets. They were looking to get much more usage out of assets to kind of, to kind of maximize the money, as it were, which has an effect on agencies because if you're not asked to make more stuff, then it's all correlated. It's all part of the same story. So you're right, and you and I aren't going to solve that today on this call, but we can
No, not at all.
certainly. But I think one thing that I wondered what your view is of this. Not to blindside you with the question, but it feels quite short-sighted at the moment. It feels quite, like you say, it's very driven around sales. It's driving to now. Let's focus on delivery and if no one's thinking about slightly longer term, then that really makes me think, well, at some point that's going to end, right? If you're just delivering short term stuff, then that runs out, and how are you going to move into the next year, next 2 years? I spoke about this with a planner friend of mine. Gone are the days where you used to do 2-3 year plans with clients. I'm talking from an agency point of view. You're lucky if you talk about quarters. If hey, what we're going to do in Q2, 3, and 4, that's a win these days from an agency side, which is such a strange thing. It plays into this kind of short-term delivery requirement that seems to be the drive of most places at the moment. But feels like there'll be an issue with that at some point.
Yeah, and ultimately, what is the role? I think that's the key question, isn't it? What is the role of a marketing director or CMO within the business? And ultimately, the directors are there as leaders. The leaders there of strategic direction to manage, obviously, the board and the stakeholders, and really the ambassadors of the business. And I think one of the key things, so going back to where the recruitment market is, you see in role inflation. So, many job descriptions, and we go on to what the trend is and what the recruitment market's like. But what you're seeing is the ask for everything. I was on a call even on Monday for a particular role, and for a sales and marketing director role. But ultimately, that job description wanted everything. They wanted board engagement, they wanted senior stakeholder management, they wanted to report to the CEO, but ultimately they wanted me to write copy. And ultimately, I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that organisations are putting out a big title out there, but ultimately wanting a senior marketing manager or senior sales manager within that role, but know that they need that senior experience to speak the right language to the C-suite, drive the business forward, drive the performance, and actually also understand the operating model as well. And I do believe, and we'll go on to it in a moment in terms of what I'm now starting to believe in terms of where the opportunities are moving forward, but I do believe that we are seeing this role inflation and salary deflation because of that focus on the tactical return on investment, the tactical delivery, the ultimate, can we get out there today? Can we throw a business card out and can we make that pretty and can we get that out there, as opposed to how do we strategically direct the business and, as you say, plan forward to ensure there's long-term growth within that organization. And ultimately, I mean, we've always talked, haven't we, as marketeers, of not taking your eye off the ball of growing the brand and focusing too much in terms of performance marketing. But we seem to be in that space, don't we, in which very much it's around that tactical, it's around that return on investment. But for me, that's only one part of the tale. That's the role of a marketing director, really. So it's ultimately what does an organization truly feel it needs to achieve the ambitions of its business. And the role of a marketing leader within the C-suite is always a turbulent one anyway, isn't it? A C2O or a chief finance officer are obviously going to be closer to the CEO in terms of longevity and longer tenure. And the role of a CMO and a marketing director can be a tricky one in terms of making sure that you're really hitting the nail of the ambitions of the business, really. So yeah, I think it's turbulent waters is the best way to describe where organizations are and what they want from marketing.
It's funny what you just said there about the thing on Monday. I had a similar experience not a few months ago where the feedback was, sorry, we're going to go with someone else because they were concerned at my lack of, um, it sounded like literally content management and, literally putting stuff out. And I was thinking, well, there'll be people there who do that, but unless you're looking for me to do that, as well as talking to the the president of that company, doing my client servicing. But if you then want me to come back to base and be the content manager, then like you
Mm.
say, that is and it sounded like that's what they were looking for, someone who could do both. And I was a bit like, wow, that's clearly they're combining two or three roles there. They want the seniority of someone who could go and have the conversations with the C-suite at the client side, but then come back to base and write the theme tune, sing the theme tune, put the theme tune out. I was a bit like, okay, well, good luck to that
Mm.
person. And maybe a younger person who does all of that and has grown up doing that and enjoys doing that might be clearly better suited. But it's yeah, there's a lot of the wanting the moon on the stick is what it feels like at the moment, rather than highly experienced in doing X, Y, and Z. It's now you have to do X, Y, and Z, ABC, AI, all the letters of the alphabet at the moment. So we'll
And that's
see.
probably
Well,
why. Yeah, and that's probably why you
well,
see when you see certain roles out there and think, oh God, that company's recruiting again for the same head of marketing that I swear blind that job description was there a year ago. And that's because they've brought in someone more junior than what the role is capable, but the expectation is a
yeah,
lot
maybe.
higher in
Yeah,
terms of that stakeholder engagement. There's a certain role that's been advertised at the moment, and I know they've got through 6 head ofs in the last 3 years. And I was talking to the
jeez.
recruiter about it, and you just absolutely know the CEO's expectation is very of what they want that role to do is it's extremely high and needs senior experience to run that. But ultimately, the job description has driven a different candidate, and ultimately they set that candidate up for fail. So it's kind of both sides of the stick, really, isn't it, of how that sits.
No, for sure. So clearly, in your current capacity of in the Badlands, you're job hunting, you're doing the usual things, recruiters, you're doing your own LinkedIn, you're doing your own networking. I know before this call, you've just come off something where you're keeping yourself abreast of the latest goings on within the marketing world. But in all of that time, and I'm obviously leading to a question that you and I have talked about, which is around this fractional role and this fractional approach to yourself and what that could mean for you moving forwards, given your seniority and things, and what impact that can have on organizations. And you'll see I've just massively crowbarred it into the conversation here, Celia, because it's the thing that you and I have spent a lot of time talking about, in that there's clearly an opportunity and there's clearly a thing out there. And I see some ex-colleagues and some ex-clients have fractional title, fractional this, fractional that. And it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around what it was they were talking about. And there was a guy I used to work with like 10 years ago, and he's had that title for a long, long time. It was maybe the first in my network that I saw using it. And it's taken me a while to kind of figure out what that is. I still do think it might just be a fancy way of saying hard time, but we can come to that another time. Um, I know it's something that you're interested in, and I know it's something that you're keen to explore, and you have some strong views on how that could be both beneficial for someone like you looking for these kind of senior roles, but how it could be beneficial for the organization. So I've teed you up there, Celia, with a let's talk about fractional, because we've talked about it
Yeah.
offline. So yeah, what do you think it means to you in your particular role? Yeah, how are you finding it, I guess, because it feels quite new still to a lot of people.
It is. And well, again, going back to your first statement there, what is the definition of fractional? Is
Yeah,
it part-time? Is it portfolio? A lot of people have had portfolio within their title, portfolio marketing director. A lot of people have had interim marketing director, or other people have said, I'm now a consultant. And actually, for me, all of those fit in. So part time is true because ultimately, for those organisations that can't afford senior resource on a full time basis, 5 days a week at a high salary, but going back to some of the challenges we've just touched on there, with more junior heads of that are there, they're just not hitting that mark of hitting them with the breadth of the experience in terms of the marketing space and disciplines. So absolutely, it can be part-time both for organisations and for a fractional. That fractional might be, and certainly I'm not in that space in terms of the age, but we do have certain individuals who are coming to the end of their career and want to give value back. So for them, absolutely, that would be part-time. And if they worked 1 day a week or 2 days a week, that absolutely is giving value back to the industry and to organisations. Ultimately, though, it could be part-time where it's just part-time for a company, but ultimately I could be working 5 days a week, but I would then have a portfolio of clients where I'd be doing potentially 2 days in one organisation, 2 days in another. So ultimately, for me, that's not a strange world to be in, because as a client service director in an agency, you'd have the same of different clients to which you'd have to do
multiple
so. So
accounts, and you're looking after
yeah.
you're looking after different things, and it's where time sheets become problematic for me, because I'm like, well, I've called 5 different times in the last hour. How do I fill that in? But I'm sorry, I
Uh,
interrupted. But yeah,
I haven't, as setting myself up self-employed, I haven't done that to myself yet, which is the timesheets. I'd hate to think where I've been, but there we go. And then the other one is interim. So you've reflected obviously on my previous role that was interim. That conversation started with a conversation in a pub with a CEO saying, Celia, I could really do with your help. I've got this massive problem, the border on my back, we're ebbing money all over the place. I don't know what the team is doing, and no other member of the leadership team is able to take control of this team. So can you come in? Can you help me? That was basically a conversation that was a 6-month opportunity, and I probably would do 1 or 2 days a week for them. As I then started to join that business, obviously the scope got wider. There was customer programs, there was IT transformation projects, everything then that brought where all my skills could be leveraged as part of that leadership team. And I was firmly seated at the table, marketing director role, and reporting into a CEO. So ultimately that shifted and changed as the result, as being part of that business and understanding the challenges of those business. So therefore that's the interim piece, isn't it? And then there's the consultant, which is you bring in your skills and experience. So to wrap that all up, what is fractional? Well, for me, yeah, it's a buzzword. It's either part-term, it's portfolio, it's interim, or it's consultant. But ultimately, it's about bringing in a senior resource that can solve a problem for you. That's whether you're a startup because you actually have got a great idea to go to market, you just don't have the capability or capacity or skill set to be able to take you to market, or it's that you're going through transformation and the team haven't got capacity, or there isn't a skill set. Like my previous role, there wasn't a marketing director within their leadership team, and they ultimately didn't have marketing skills to know to resolve the problem. So there is, for me, that's where there's this opportunity that I feel that you can still give very much to an organisation, but ultimately you can give them the advantage that they can't afford a hefty marketing director salary. They can't afford to actually run the risk of recruiting. So you can be very agile with a fractional. You can bring that person in with the specialist project that you need to look into, as you would a consultant really, but you're placing them in the heart of the business. You're enabling them to collaborate with other leaders within that business, which I fundamentally believe a specialist agency or a consultant that will come in and come back out again can't ultimately do. So yeah, I do think there's massive opportunities for certainly medium-sized organisations that have got hefty marketing spends, haven't necessarily got the right structures or the right operating models around their people, their third parties, their transformation. Fractional is really a great opportunity to get them back into that high performance space that they need to be and help them achieve whatever ambition they set out to achieve, really. So I do think there is a growing opportunity, and you jumped on it where you said, yes, I've just had a lovely time in Canada, but ultimately I'm a bit of a sod that I want to watch the news all the time and make sure I understand what's happening while I'm back home. And everything was littered with adverts of fractional. That language is common over
really,
there. And I think my husband was a bit bored of me because it's, I'm supposed to be on holiday, not be thinking about work. But it really proved that organisation design is something that's familiar outside the UK. And I think going back to the
right.
education piece of fractional, we're not aware or educated how we use it. We know we can use agencies for specialist projects. We know we can bring an interim in, but actually have we thought how we can use with a bum on the seat as a fractional as part of our leadership teams to help progress change really and drive change forward.
Yeah, so that's An amazing summary of your view of it, and I agree wholeheartedly. I guess there's a couple of questions that come out of it for me because, like I say, it's clearly something I could do. I could easily be a fractional business director, a fractional business lead. I could easily come and do that for clients within an ad agency, or even directly, like you say, I could go to source and help them. Um, One thing that springs to mind, though, then is the challenge around the understanding that might not quite be there from an organizational or brand point of view, but equally the recruitment side. Like
Mm.
it seems like it still might be quite. I- I've had recruiters ask me, would you be open to short term contracts or medium term contracts? And it's like, yeah, of course. But they're not talking about fractional at all. They're talking about, would I go in 5 days a week for 3 months, right? Go and do a project for this
An
set period of
interim,
time, as
yeah.
opposed to like yeah, like whereas you've described, you're really more of a, it's like you per se, the fractional piece in the simplest term is you can get an adult in the room to come and firefight and help solve some organizational things or some monetary things or some marketing challenges without having to be in the weeds and be there every single day. I can see such value in it, like say in the SME space, but then from a recruitment point of view or the client's organizations understanding that that's a thing. Have you seen any issues with it? Have you experienced it? Like, have you spoke to recruiters about that? Look, this is something I'd be willing to do. Are you having those conversations with your clients, Mr. Recruiter, Mrs. Recruiter? Is that
Uh,
something that they're asking recruiters about yet? I don't know. It feels like we've got this thing, but no one's quite sure how to sell it or buy it.
You're absolutely spot on. I've got a number of recruiters because obviously I'm heavy in the job search. A number of large recruiters of household names that we'll know of, as well as independent ones too. And you know, as we do when you're job searching, you keep that regular cadence of contact with them. But I've certainly been quizzing them around their business model and commercial model and the opportunity to really do this. So I approached an independent one. I said, this could be a fantastic opportunity. There's a commercial model that we could sit behind this, but ultimately their business model is, it's certainly on the junior space as well, so slightly different. Headhunters may be slightly different in that space, but the recruiters that are probably even just going up to head of level, they're used to, and it's been played back to me, we talk to the client, they tell us what they need, and we can then bring candidates to them, and it's a churn, isn't it? It's in, it's out, and that's the money
Yeah,
there. And same with an interim contract. So I think trying to have a wider business model where they are required to do more business development, to back to your point, which is the education, the understanding, the shaping of what that could be, then ultimately I don't think where recruiters are at this moment in time and their own challenges, as opposed to where people pop a broad JD on a LinkedIn post, then I think they've got their own challenges at the moment, and there may be some that would start to look out to that. But certainly, of the pool of recruiters that I've spoke to, and there's been quite a few of them, it's something that they're not open to consider at this moment in time. Um, Now, where you then go to is,
well,
so how do we
Celia,
make awareness?
sorry to interject. I'm literally saying, well, you and I should start a fractional recruitment agency that deals with fractional folk, because you're right. I've mentioned it to my recruiter and got the same kind of, oh, we're not getting asked for that. And it's like, no, I understand that, but that's like me saying, well, my client's not asking for that. Sometimes you've got to take new ideas to the client that they're not asking for because you know that's going to solve a problem that they have at a business level, right? Always asking, always
Yeah.
waiting to be asked is very rarely going to get you the thing that you want. So maybe we should,
Yeah.
Celia. We'll talk offline about that.
Well, even as I said, going back to my experience on Monday, that was a prime example where actually you think, actually, if someone had talked them through that JD, they would say, do you know what, absolutely, you need someone operational to do 80% of what that JD is. But actually, if you considered a fractional that gets you into a different space and gives you a head start, really, we can
Right.
do that at low risk and very agile, and bring in the right breadth of skill that's needed for that particular area. So I do fundamentally believe there is an opportunity and businesses are crying out for it. You and I spoke the other day, there's so much business out there and so many challenges that businesses are facing. Someone's got to be adult in the room with that breadth of experience to take that forward. But yeah, so I think with recruiters, it's going to be something in the future. As I say, if you go into Canada, you see that there's obviously recruiters advertising on a daily basis in terms of fractional. So I suppose it's a different shift. But actually then going back to the education piece, yes, there are a number of different business models out there of how they deal with fractionals and have cohorts of fractional teams and how that works. And there's many different commercial models of how that is set up. However, with a contact that you and I both have, he posted only a few weeks ago where someone had said, I've heard so much about this fractional. I'd love to know more about it. Who is out there? Who is even a fractional? And obviously loads of us jumped in at that moment in time. But yeah, there just doesn't. Yeah. And it is literally that, isn't it? How do we explain? So this is very much in its infancy, but as I say, is it? That's the key question I've got, because fundamentally the challenge is still the same. The challenge is, how do you get senior resource into a space, into a hot seat, make them accountable and make sure that they deliver very quickly to help the business achieve its goals, really. So yes, I think there's a mass opportunity. It's just that education piece and how it is packaged out there for businesses to understand it.
Hey, well, look, this podcast episode, when I put this out, this is going to go some way towards dealing with that education piece, because it's just more people need to be talking about it and figuring out how to make best use of someone like you. So, and I've a lot of the senior marketeers and a couple of CMOs I've spoken to, they would all do that. They'd all happily have that kind of portfolio approach to working with a number of brands, given their experience. Like I say, you could easily do a couple of days on this, a couple of days on that brand, and deliver across your week some amazing stuff. So we'll get this out pretty sharpish. I think with all that in mind, I'm curious to. You've been in the space, the Badlands, for a little bit longer than you'd hoped or expected. How are you managing it? Just from your own sanity, your own health, like how are you dealing with it? Because it's we've spoken before. It's weird to go from that full on. I've been working with teams, and then all of a sudden you're at home and you're just trying to find your way out of this weird place. So how are you managing it for you?
The best way to say is I have some very good days, and that's instead of bad days, I suppose I'd say despondent days. So, if I start about how I it's a learning curve, isn't it? That you've gone out of that structure of being part of a team where the business is driving you. Yes, you drive the business, but ultimately the wheels of the cogs are moving. That therefore you are part of pushing that forward. And then all of a sudden you're left with your little screen at home, with fighting to try and get some visibility, etc. So you're relying on your own personal motivation daily, and for me the best way that I've done that, and everybody says it at this level, it's about your network. My network has been fantastic. Maybe not even in terms of actually being able to offer something or refer, but obviously I've been referred to yourself, and you and I have now been introduced. I've got some very strong members of my network who have been ultimately gold dust in terms of just opening the doors for a conversation. Whether that conversation has gone anywhere, then that's fine. But that's a hard gig, to be honest. You've got to be on your game every day. You've got to be full of energy. You've got to obviously be abreast of everything else that's happening. And that's where I find it a challenge, that when you're in work, you're talking the language, you're aware of it. When you're looking for work, you're stuck at this first base of talking about yourself and what you're capable of doing, whereas actually you're not shaping it around a challenge of a business. So my best days are when I'm networking. I am a people person. My best days are when I've jumped on a train, I'm face to face with people outside the screen. I've got the buzz of a business. And you can feel the business, you can feel the environment, you can feel the adrenaline, and that's the personality I always bring to every business that I go to. So I'm enjoying the networking events. The challenge that you have is which ones to really go to that are going to give you value, both from your development side, but also from your opportunities to open doors to explore other areas, really. So that's what I find a challenge. So for me, the biggest thing, anyone that knows me knows I'm pacey, knows I'm quite hard on myself and I drive myself hard. I had a skiing accident in January and it basically, best way to say is stopped me in my tracks. So I had to really learn to be kind to myself and take it
Right.
as it comes. So I've set this business up, I'm now self-employed, but I've had to learn to be kind to myself. And actually, instead of driving myself and going, I'll look a little bit more, I'll go, do you know what? Actually, this morning I'm going to go to the gym. It's 8 o'clock and I won't be bang at the
Right.
desk at
Yeah.
9 o'clock. I'm going to go,
Yeah.
and I'm absolutely in love with the Peloton at the gym. And I'm not going to say which instructor because he's my virtual boyfriend. But but ultimately, it's that piece of being kind to myself, taking that downtime, acknowledging that actually I don't need to drive 8 hours a day of this job search. Although I'm quite capable of doing that, I need to be kind, because ultimately, sitting on a screen, being ghosted, it's quite impactful each day because you know you've got a lot
It
to
is.
offer. It is quite demoralizing. So yeah, there's days where you feel devalued when it's faceless applications, poor written job descriptions, standard rejection letters, recruiters ghosting you. But then, as I say, you flip it onto your network, and there's been some fantastic conversations and
Well,
adrenaline that
I,
makes me realize why I do what I do.
well, no, that's so good to hear, and there's I've no doubt anyone else in the Badlands will recognize some of those things and the importance of those things. For what it's worth, you and I spoke on Monday, a bit of a catch up post holidays and things, and I remember I came onto the call and I was in a shitty mood and I was pretty down that day, and I told you, and it was a bit like, it was sometimes you just can't be, up all the time. But then weirdly, our conversation, I felt fantastic afterwards because speaking to people but speaking to people is important, and just reaching out to your
Yes.
friends and kind of catching up with people as much as you can is a big part of kind of staying sane, because it's yeah, it's hard. And I may have to check out Peloton if there's sexy boyfriends that are available virtually for me. I'd be happy for one of those every morning. Um, but no, it's great to hear that based on everything I've spoken about with other people, you've got the right attitude and structure to it. There's times you've got to go hard, and then there's times you've got to be super kind and look after yourself. And Hassan, who I spoke to, he made a huge point of it. You've got to look after yourself, and then you
Mhm.
can apply yourself. If you're just trying to, flog your way out of it, that's going to run out. You're going to run out of energy. So I think it's super useful what you just
And
said there. So
it's not overthinking it, isn't it? That's the
no,
key challenge. And when you do start to overthink it, you know absolutely call on your network. As I say, I'd love to be able to sit here now and reel off the list of those that have been super super supportive to me, always been at the end of the phone, offered a coffee, offered lunch, paid for lunch. And it's just been the support is overwhelming, actually, in terms of what you
no,
are.
that's
And I'm
great.
looking forward that when I'm back in work that I can repay that. But yeah, I think when you get to a point that you overthink it, and you overthink that there isn't opportunities out there, that actually just go back to your network, get someone to pick you back up again, and actually you're just then ready to roll again. And that's all you can do, isn't it? And just keep plugging away.
Yeah. So look, before I ask you a couple of the closer questions, you mentioned the phrase that I think might be, don't they do like a word of the year every year in the UK in the dictionary or something? Anyway, I'm sure this would only be the word of the year for people in the Badlands, but ghosting, you use that term that is being used. It barely needs speaking about now because it's clearly a thing that everyone recognizes is the new norm, which is a little depressing. But I've kind of got over that nature of realizing that it's kind of the new norm, and I'm not saying it's fine, but it's like, all right, fine, you're not going to change it. But I had I think I set a record, a personal record, which was, I won't name the agency, but I interviewed at a place 4 months ago, I think it was, and clearly I hadn't, it was fine. I didn't get the job, but they emailed me yesterday telling me that I didn't get the job. It was 4 months ago. And I was just like, oh, so I wasn't ghosted. That was just that they've just taken a long time. But it really made me laugh. 4 months. I genuinely had to think. I was like, I couldn't even remember what the thing was that I'd come for.
Mm.
It really made me laugh. 4 months was the new record for someone coming back.
And you know
Just
what?
made me laugh anyway.
You and I spoke on Monday about, come on, Celia, what's your dream job? And clearly, everyone can say that you want it with gold dust and everything else. But to me, you've just touched on there, which is culture. Which absolutely, everything you
Yeah.
read, but you have to experience being in the Badlands. You have to experience where you've had, and it's great in terms of the diversity of my CV, but it does mean that I am quite specific now of what I do want and what I don't want. I know what suits me. I know what's the key code for me and what brings out the best in me. And I know what I can bring to a business. But ultimately, that ghosting element, the way I've started to look at it is, well, actually, then it wasn't meant to be. That isn't the
No,
culture that
of
I want to
course.
be a part of.
Yeah, of
And as
course.
you say, 4 months 4 months later, kind of says, my God, then if they had to make a decision, how could they make a decision quickly in an organisation? So I think it tells a lot, doesn't
Yeah.
it, about actually how they value people and what they need to do as an organization.
Well, like you say, it doesn't scream of agile and fast paced and moving with the times and being at the cutting edge. It doesn't scream of any of that from an agency point of view. So, but look, it was just nice to be remembered. So that's why I'm not going to say the name. So it was fun. But yeah, you're right. You've got to roll with it a little bit. It's okay. Don't take it personally. It just seems to be the new thing. That's the new norm, which is unfortunate. But hey, we can change it. So you just touched on one of the things, which is kind of how I like to wrap these things up, because when you are in the Badlands, you do reflect and you do get to think about your own principles and what you like doing, what you don't like doing, where you like to work. So one of my final questions would be, what's a dream place? Where would you like to go and be the fractional marketing director? Let's make it happen, Celia. Let's manifest it. I'm going to send them the podcast, whether you like it or not. Think of a good one, because they're going to get. So
Oh no,
think of
you're
a
going to
good
ask me
brand.
for an organisation. Um, to me, I've not been organisation specific. As I said, that's why the job descriptions are quite key to me, because ultimately it's always, and that's why it's such a shame that recruiters aren't actively aware of jobs that are out there as much as what they were 2 years plus ago, because it is about fit and it's about what you are as working with colleagues and other leadership teams, so that you know that you actually are with like-minded individuals. You're in the bumpy ride together, but you're happy to be in that bumpy ride together. um, Value marketing where it's both strategic and things. It needs to be pacey. I can't be doing with what you've just said in terms of 4 months to make a decision about something. So pacey environments are definitely for me. As I say, I did launch a brand within 4 months, which was from New Zealand. So bought a platform and licensed the brand and platform from New Zealand and brought it to the UK market. And the like-minded individuals in the room, the adrenaline that we had to take that brand to market and to challenge ourselves and to be hit by the numbers is exactly a meaty challenge that I'm really interested in finding, where there's true ambition and they're determined to get to that true ambition. But for me, it's culture. It's who are you working with, the ability. People always laugh at me. I love writing and writing on walls, drawing on walls. I like teasing out that problem. I like collaborating with others. Yeah, they're buzzwords, but that's just who I am. So for me, it's just trying to find that perfect place of where I'll be happy to call my work home.
Well, that's going to be hard for me to send. But
Really. I'll get my
I'll
list to
just
you
send it to
later.
everyone. All right, no worries. Look, and you've already said there's too many people to shout out, given what you're saying around your network and how they kind of rallied around. But is there anyone in particular? Is there one or two people? Because it's so important. I talk about my wife all the time. She's been amazing. But equally, then some of the people that I've met through this process have been fantastic as well, like checking in and out. So weirdly building a new sub network, which is nice. But is there anyone? You don't have to. You get to say no, they're all legends. But is there anyone
No,
you'd love
I
to
mean,
say this one?
I have to start from the top of the tree, don't I? And clearly, to keep my
What about
marriage
your Peloton?
intact,
What about
then
your
it's.
Peloton code?
You don't know. It depends if Peloton pay me then. But yeah, it's certainly my husband. He's my number one advocate. He's number one supporter.
Nice.
And he's luckily we're in the same industry together, so he is very like-minded and really does pick me up from any days. I'm not allowed many seconds to be down, believe me. But always puts me back on track and then sort of pushes me out the door. I had an example the other week where I was jumping on a train to go to London, and I wasn't, as you were saying about Monday, you just weren't feeling it. And it was 6:30 in the morning, just about to leave, and I went, just don't feel it today. And it was like he was a dad sending a little child out to primary school, and he just shut the door on me and he says, you'll be all right when you get there. So number one advocate really in terms of husband. But yeah, I am part of the Alliance and Leicester Santander ex family. There's quite a few ex-colleagues there that I really have to call out as being there for the coffee, the lunches, the extended network. And then, as you say, Richard Robinson is how you and I connected. He is an ultimate connector within our industry. There's no two words about it.
Really is.
Always happy to have a green tea. Always offering a hot desk at the agency. So absolutely can't thank him enough for how much he's been able to open doors and open new opportunities and relationships for me, really. But and Peloton's number one star, Brad. Yes, I'll have to say him for keeping me mentally sane. So there we go.
Well,
maybe that's the organisation I should work for.
I was going to say, well, the amount of advertising that Peloton's gotten on this episode, they should be sponsoring this episode, or they should be at least giving you a discount on your next month of Peloton. You need to do something for
absolutely.
you. I'll send it to them. I'll send it to them, Steve. Well, look, I hope people listening take a lot from this. There's clearly a lot of opportunity for people that are highly experienced, both from a marketing point of view, an agency point of view, like me, where this new fractional world is only going to become more interesting, and I think it offers more opportunity for both the brands and the organizations, and it does people like us. So I think we'll keep pushing it. I know you're going to keep pushing it. I'm going to keep pushing it. I've got another conversation with someone else who's pushing it slightly from a different angle. So that'll come out in a few weeks' time. But Celia, I can't thank you enough. It's been amazing talking to you, both offline and today. So with that, I think we'll say goodbyes. You know what I'm doing next. I'm not job hunting. I'm off to the driving range to really ruin my day, basically. It's probably better spending my day job hunting than going to the driving range to play some golf.
And that's where the best thinking will come. That's where the best.
Exactly. So, look, I can't thank you enough. Just stay on the line for a second. I just need to speak to you about something else. But for anyone listening, Celia is obviously available now for fractional and other things. But I'll obviously be linking to Celia, and clearly she can come in and help at many levels within a number of sectors. So, Celia, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much, and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Speak again soon.
Will do. Hang on. Stay there.
Yep.